So I feel kind of overwhelmed with compassion and the vibration that coming from all of you. And first I would like to thank you so much for the director of Tibetan Library, Tenzin Lhadron, and Bryce, and all the staff members of the Science Department, having me here to speak on compassion. Well, the title is like the challenges of practicing compassion in today's world. When you're talking about compassion, first I think, it's compassion. You could ask what is compassion and why we practice compassion, and what happens if you do not really, practice compassion, and see the benefit, and then, like the not disadvantage of being anger. I guess like when you're talking about compassion, it's more like a inner value that's rooted in every culture and almost every religion, I think, especially in like the major religion in India. And the tradition that I was trained, I'm still under training, the Buddhist philosophy, how you want to be practice compassion, and the whole teaching of the Lord Buddha, actually the essence is always compassion. And it has so deep and different layers and different levels and different stages. How do you really, train yourself as a practice compassion? And it's really important. Yeah, it's important to define what is compassion and how you really develop. And there are different stages that you develop. But if you think about ourselves as a human being, it's in a way it's a part of our life. It's our very survival of ourselves is based on compassion. It's a matter of different level. Some are more compassionate than others, and some are like more kindness than others. It's just a matter of people have, but the quality itself is everybody have it. So I'll just start with this is really wonderful quotation that I really love when I do like a daily kind of thinking about compassion. And you can see this, what is it, when you rely on some person, someone, your negative diminish and your positive quality grow like a waxing moon. To cherish such a spiritual friend more than your own body is practice of bodhisattva. Here what bodhisattva means, it's a noble being who always dedicate themselves like serve others, using their inner qualities, compassion, loving kindness, and altruistic mind. So these quotations really help for one individual to train as a compassionate person. So I thought it's really, really relevant to share here. It was written by like a Buddhist masters. It's an example at Tibetan. We call it like the ocean of compassion and altruistic mind. So these are, I think it's not really, it doesn't have to do with anything, with the faith or religion. It's more like a universal values, whether you're a believer or whether you're a non-believer or whether you're, coming from different culture or background. These could be just applied in our daily life, right? So when you rely on like good people and compassionate people, the quality you just adapt really easily. It's kind of a way of our life. And they have to see here. What is compassion? If you have to practice compassion, you need to promote the culture of compassion. And the culture of compassion, what it means like that if one individual start to learn and like practice compassion, that will really influence to your friends and family, and that really expand you furthermore, like in global level. So the monks and nuns and those who are dedicated the whole life to study the topic of compassion, and not just study and learn the word is not enough. What you have to do is we have to apply in our daily life. And one example you could do, like, how do you really apply in daily life? Well, there are so many different ways that you could do. And once you get up in the morning, His Holiness the Dalai Lama often teach us how to want you to be like a good person and compassionate person. When you wake up in the morning, probably you think like, how lucky I am, be alive, and I'm still alive, and I'm still a human being, and compassion is our like innate kind of quality. And think about that. I'm alive because of others' care and others' love and others' compassionate action that influence you. If you think about that and motivate with that, and then when you go through daily activities and wherever you are, studying, working, whatever, if you are just be mindful, be gentle and soft and motivate with like a clear motivation to put, other before themselves, which is another way of, practicing compassion. And when you're talking about compassion, love, and care, and patience, it doesn't have to do at all with the religion, I think. And of course, if you go to like a deeper philosophical level, there are certain things, when you go like a deeper level, they have some differences. But instead of looking at the differences, how about if you just look the common and the similarity, that people are coming from different cultural background, and put everyone's effort together to bring about peace, happiness, and create like more compassionate community, and more compassionate nation, more compassionate world. So we have to make the determination to do it. And we have the capacity and we have the potential to do it. No matter how powerful some of the, when you're talking here, we are talking like a dialogue between science and philosopher, or, like a conversation with the scientists and ancient tradition or ancient wisdom and compassion. So we are all human beings. So we are doing really wonderful work, and we have to put it together. And then, in certain things, why I say like challenges of practicing compassion in today's world, when you're looking at news or when you turn on television or go on the internet, sometimes it looks like our world is kind of falling apart. And then you give some thought on it. Why is this really going on here? Or is this something new thing that's happening that never happened before or not? We could make like analyze on that. Well, probably it happening in the past, but in the past we didn't have the modern technology, that news, information that reach across the world very easily in 1 second. In the past, the transportation and communication, everything was not really available now, like now here. But, the scientific innovation or invention that you call it, we could use it like in very positive way as well. And there are negative ways, but the negative and positive are always everywhere. So you can't really, when you're talking about compassion means like a wish that ends suffering of others. And if you wish others to be happy, His Holiness often said, like, if you want others will be happy, practice compassion. And if you want to be happy, practice compassion. So these are really simple quotation and really, really simple teaching His Holiness all the time give us. And for us, how do we really apply this? It's our duty and our responsibility to do it. And, we are part of the world. We are part of the community. And we have to, like take some initiative or do our part, what we can do within your community, and then that slowly reach out to the world. So, we have a lot of common and similarity that we could share each other, the two of the community, like the philosophy or the ancient wisdom or the compassion tradition, and then modern science or scientists. And when you're talking about science, I'm not really a scientist, but I do study like a little bit about Buddhist psychology, which could be a science as well. And here we have the definition for compassion. When we train in the monastic education, we have the way, how do you study or how do you practice compassion or love or kind, patience, all these wonderful themes that we have. And our way of training is, first we have to define what is compassion or what is love. And then how many different types of compassion do you have? And how do you really cultivate that? And then we often go to like a quotation from like reliable sources, like Buddha's teaching, or commentaries like the 17 Nalanda Pandita's teaching. So that's how we train, but that doesn't mean that you have to do with taking refuge or based on faith. It's more like a universal value. It's a universal, it's common for all humanity, not even just one humanity, not even just for humanity, but all sentient beings. So here you say, like, what is compassion? It's like, I have found like a few different kind of translation here, but in Tibetan language, when you say compassion, it's like a ninji or sewa, and there are like two kind of components in here, like sensitivity for the suffering, and then motivate to elevate or end that suffering, and just temporarily relief, and then like there are ways that you could eliminate the suffering. And then when you're talking about suffering, you need, if you want to end suffering for others, how do you really do end all the suffering? You can't really diminish all problem and suffering in one night or overnight. That's impractical. You can't really do that. But you could keep try. We can keep try, and so, make ourselves more confident and happy. The whole idea about practice compassion is to bring about happiness and peace. So if you train yourself to be happy, mentally, physically, emotionally, if you train yourself as happy, that will make you feel others, right? So, when you're talking about like, sensitivity to suffering and motivate to elevate or end that suffering. And there are practical way to do it. I could give one example. If you see like when you are walking on the street, and if you see somebody who is really under pain or problem, whether you know that person or not, doesn't really much matter. The person is exactly the same as us, who really want to be happy and peace and calm, it's the same as like us. And if there's a way that you could help, if there's a way that you could really take that suffering, maybe you just give your helping hand there. And if there are certain things that you can't really do it, beyond our capacity, and in that case, what we do, pray. And if there's a way that you could really do, you could really contribute to eliminate the suffering, we have to try it. So, and how do you develop compassion? When you according to the text, in order to be able to develop cultivate genuine compassion, you have to develop cultivate love, loving kindness. And then equanimity, practice of equanimity, seeing everyone as your mother or sisters or brothers. So even like in scientific, investigation, evolutionary theory, they do have some proof that everyone is like a brother or sister or something like that. I don't know the complex, but they do have that. But then, even though whether everyone you see as your mother or has been one's mother or not, but the very existence of self is because of others' kindness and compassion, like others' care and others' sympathy and others' compassion that's shown us. So that's why, there's a stage we have to see others practice like equanimity, means like because of our negative emotions, sometimes we create like and dislike and just live in neutral. That's not really practical, and we have to be more practical. And maybe somebody in the morning is your enemy, maybe in the afternoon or tomorrow become the best friend. So like an enemy or friends or family doesn't really stay like as a friend or as an enemy forever. It's just always change. So that's why you have to develop like equanimity, practice. Equanimity means like treat everyone equally. And these are kind of stages that we practice. This is what it is, why we need to cultivate compassion, and I was just putting it in like a point. If there are scientific finding that if we practice compassion, your physical body or your physical health remain better. And if that is the case, there's no real question that your mental, the mental health remain good and better too. So if there is a benefit to practice compassion for both physical body, physical and mental, and why we don't practice it? And how far you can reach, no matter how far you can do, it's just we have to just do according to our own level and our own capacity. And there are, probably in some different communities, you do not really agree that if you want others to be happy, practice compassion. If you want yourself to be happy, practice compassion. Probably not really common for everyone. But if you think deeply, it is common. But it's a matter of understanding. It's a matter of understanding, really. And whether you agree or not, it doesn't really much matter, You don't have to put too much kind of like a deep sort of argument and philosophical kind of a debate here. Of course, if you apply, like understand compassion, like combined with like a understanding of the true nature of the reality, which we call it's wisdom. Like why if you want others to be happy, practice compassion means like we survive because of others. The reason that you could apply that. So here the wisdom play a great role here. If you still be happy, practice compassion means if everyone in this hall treating each other really badly, how will you feel? If you can think that, it will be really horrible. You feel like we feel like we really run away. So it shouldn't happen that, right? So if you just like treat each other well and based on logic and reason, that's more like a stable compassion and stable loving kindness that we could cultivate within your mind stream. And when you say compassion is really like an external thing that you can't really go in the supermarket and buy it. So how do you do it? We have to sit here, and how do you really cultivate it? Through training. We often call like a mind training or like meditate on compassion and study on the different, philosophy. How do you really develop compassion, and how do you really expand that compassion in the community? And agreeing or not is not really much matter. It's like it's more like our way of life. It's more like our survival. Without compassion, in a way, we can't really survive. And you could give like an example, like a mother and child, right? And maybe you could think like if our mother didn't really care, didn't really give the maximum love and compassion to us, we won't be really here today. Probably we'll dead, or maybe we were somewhere else. So then in Buddhist philosophy, and then the deeper understanding of the compassion here is mother-child care and compassion is often mixed with like attachment. And you can't really mix these two terms. When you say like a wish to free from suffering, and compassion has to reach for everyone, not only just another child and friends and family, but even to your enemy, or even to your someone who sometimes causes you a problem. It's difficult sometimes, but that doesn't really mean like you're hopeless. So if you try, you can manage it, and you could contribute in different ways. Here I was putting like compassion and junior compassion and then great compassion. There are different levels out there. And like just like ordinary people like us, when we practice compassion, we have to put a lot of effort to happen that, to get like a wish to free from suffering others, including oneself. We have to put a lot of effort, and then these are kind of compassion, but not really like a genuine compassion. When you say genuine compassion, it just naturally it comes to your mind. When you get like a habituated, when you get like a really much good habit on that, that's a genuine compassion. And great compassion here, well, if you go to like a deep philosophical understanding, there's a lot of difference out there, but these are like the stages that us to train as a compassionate person. It's unconditional. You have to generate it unconditionally with everyone. There are like 7 steps that you generate the altruistic mind, starting with practicing equanimity and loving kindness and compassion and altruistic mind, and then in Buddhism we call it the bodhicitta, which means like wish to get eliminate all negativities and gain all the good qualities for the benefit of others, which is bodhicitta we often call it. It's like more like a religious kind of force. I have 1 minute left. Here, maybe say just a few words about the challenges of practicing compassion. Challenge means difficult in one sense, but it doesn't really mean that we have to challenge with when you face difficulties to practice compassion and practice patience. We have to put more effort to move forward. To become more compassionate rather than moving away. That's what I mean. It doesn't mean that it's hopeless and everything is like deteriorating. And the different people can have different interpretation here, but what I meant here is we have to move forward than withdrawing and moving away. Instead of moving away, to go there. And practicing patience, and when you practice patience, you need to have someone who causes you problem, who cause you some kind of unease or hurt a little bit in a way. But just very momentary kind of hurt or harm that doesn't really last forever. So what I mean here, challenging means like we have to challenge it and we have to move forward. That's what I meant here. And I would really like to share with these photos, and His Holiness the Dalai Lama is the messenger of peace, love, and compassion in this world that we know. And yeah, we have a lot of other people as well, but he is the main person. Here we have, you can share the compassionate action like a body, speech, and mind. Physically you can share, but when you share physical kind of compassion, you have to have like a strong wish in mentally rather than physical. So that's why I thought these photos are really relevant to share here. So you could use, follow his path. How do ourselves train? So I'm sure everybody, all of you are aware, and if you go to the internet, you can find all these photos, and you can learn a lot from just looking at one picture. It can change. Sometimes even one single picture can change like millions and millions of people's mind. So these are things. I think I'm time out, right?
You are, yes.
Okay, so thank you so much for listening, and I'm not sure whether it's kind of any benefit or not.
Thank you so much for such a wonderful talk. I so enjoyed it, and I watched the audience. They really appeared to enjoy it as well. My question kind of goes back to some of the things we've heard earlier today, particularly related to technology and use of technology and compassion. And he had spoken about that, and we heard that earlier from one of our other speakers. And thinking about now that technology provides us with the opportunity to be more boundless, do you have any ideas about how we can leverage technology to make a more compassionate world or extend compassion to others?
Was that right?
Do you have any ideas about how we can leverage the use of technology, how we can use technology better to provide or extend compassion to others?
How do you use the technology to spread the message of compassion to others, right?
Yes, use for good.
Okay. In human community, I mean, say, there are the technology that you could use to spread the message of compassion, and nowadays more and more kind of positive things that pop up on the internet. So, which is healthy and which is really good that technology can provide us to use the technology. I mean, the technology used to spread the compassion. And if you just put more the negativity things are happening all the time, if you just put on the internet negative things, violence, killing, quarreling, that really affects especially children, and especially the highly developed technology. Well, these days people use a mobile phone, an iPad, and everything. It's in a way, it's kind of, you can't really avoid these things. And then the parents and the school or the colleges, if the teachers or from the administration, if they try to put more positive thing on the internet and let the children watch it and learn from them. Could be picture, could be video, could be text. And sometimes if you write too much text, it's kind of confused. If you put some powerful image, that's really stretched stay in your mind. So these are really helpful things that you could do. So technology, you can use the technology really in positive way. And how, and as I say, more positive action, videos, photos, and write some very precise kind of text. How, what does compassion mean, and why you do this? Why do you have to practice compassion? And some very simple reason. For young children, if you give a deep philosophical kind of reason, they won't understand, right? So just according to the level of their understanding, if you put this kind of thing on the internet, that will really help. Yeah. Is that answer? Okay.
Thank you very much for, a very good presentation. I would like to add one more point here. Most of the time, we talk about, when we say compassion, we talk about compassion towards others. So I think self-compassion also very important, because we are dealing every day with ourselves, our failures, our past, our, achievements, failures. Sometimes we are successful, sometimes we are not. And sometimes we are not able to work like our plan. So in all these situations, if we review ourselves with self-compassion, then we have, and now it's well documented in psychology, in science, in positive psychology, it's beneficial. So when we understand this concept, not only when we are behaving with others, but when we are behaving with ourselves, then also it's very important construct or, concept, factor, which is really increasing well-being, happiness, and quality of life. So that way I would like to comment on. So,
Thank you.
and thank you very much for
Thank you.
presentation.
Thank you for your comment. Your question, right?
I actually would like to ask a question. The research on compassion has found that people often have a very difficult time feeling compassion for a large group of people who are suffering. So, for example, perhaps people have experienced an earthquake or a hurricane or something. The research has shown that it's much easier to feel compassion for one person rather than for many at one time. And I'm wondering, what suggestions might you have for ways that we can cultivate compassion for large groups of people who may be suffering all at once?
Okay. In practical level, you have to start with one person. I mean, not on, when you say like a large group, or like when you have like a natural disaster, like an earthquake or flood or war even, when they are killing like millions of people together. And in that particular situation, and sometimes it's quite difficult for us to, I mean, even though from your heart, from your deep down heart, you really wish to free that problem, but at practical level, you can't read that. So it's true that when the research show that it's not easy, it means like it's beyond our capacity in a way. So we have to start with individual, in like a self-compassion. Well, you have this term here, self-compassion, and then compassionate to one person, and then that to, like in the family, and then in the community. You could do that, but then just your main question was like, it's easier to practice compassion with one person instead of like a large group of people, right? It's quite true. It's quite, in practical level, it's quite difficult too. Sometimes even like if there are like a group of people who have network and keep like causing problem everywhere, in practical level, it's quite difficult sometimes to compassionate toward that people. But then we have to think about when you are training, we have like a quotation from different sources, of reliable sources from like a Buddhist philosophical text. And practical level, you won't be physically, you won't be able to free that kind of problem or the suffering. But what you could do, and if large group of people or like a group of network who are causing you a problem, you can't really bear with that. But then what you do is, well, I will not never let it go. And there is one quotation, I really love it, like I think it's like from one of the Guru Puja, we call it. There's one verse called like, everyone in this world become like standing as like an enemy to yourself. I would not let it go to pray and respond with kind of anger. And if you just think about it and recite this kind of quotation, remember this, and just remain silent yourself somewhere, that will help. In practical level, of course, you can't really do everything.
Right, yes,
yeah.
yes, thank you. Thank you very much. Do you have questions? We have some questions from the audience. So, can you tell us what is the difference between love and compassion?
Love and compassion. Okay. Love and compassion. In Tibetan word, I think love means like sewa, and compassion is love is chamba, and compassion is sewa. In order to be able to cultivate genuine compassion within yourself, you need to practice cultivate love before that. And it's a true love. What do you mean? I hope you get what I mean, right? The differences here is like, in order to be able to cultivate genuine compassion, you need to cultivate love before. This kind of step.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Melissa Kamash, do you have other questions?
I'm speaking from more of a Western standpoint of being in the United States. And it just appears to me over time that individuals become more and more self-focused or self-absorbed. And my question is, how do you think that the Western culture can begin to cultivate love and extend compassion because we're not practicing Buddhism? So do you have any ideas about that?
Well, in order to be able to practice compassion and make like a compassion in action, you don't have to be Buddhist. You don't have to take any kind of refuge or you don't have to perform any kind of ritual. So whether you're a Westerner or Easterner, it's our part of our culture. So, compared to like the East and West, there are a lot of good things for both communities. So you could share each other good thing about compassion and love, and then try to minimize the negativity. So we are saying in Western culture, it's a culture, and so there are a lot of valuable cultures there. Open-minded. I like Western culture sometimes, and doesn't really mean that like all the Western culture is kind of negative. No. You have a lot of good things. Make it open-minded, transparent, and then in Eastern culture you have like a deep philosophical long history and tradition, especially like in Buddhism. You have like a more than like nearly 2,600, like a 2,600 history. The message of Lord Buddha is compassion. So if we leave the word like the meaning of compassion just on book, it doesn't help, whether you're a Westerner or whether you're an Easterner. So we have to just put into practice. So we can have a lot of collaboration and more dialogue and more communication each other, so that way we could help each other better. Whether you're a Westerner or Easterner, not really much the matter. We are human beings. That's all.
And we have a lot to learn. From you all on how to do this. So that was sort of my point, that we have a lot of strengths, in the Western culture, but we have a lot to learn on how to do this. And because a lot of the people, it's not traditional that people meditate. It's becoming more mainstream, but it's not traditional. So how do we begin to do that when we're not doing the same sort of activities that you guys are doing to cultivate compassion?
Yeah, of course we have a lot that we need to learn. The more we get connection, the more that we can learn each other.
Again, it's not in fact question, but I just want to contribute in this discussion. Nowadays, from West also, number of research is coming up and saying that, having compassion, forgiveness, altruism, these all are actually indicators of well-being, helping us to have higher level of well-being. So once we know, yes, these are the characteristics, if we have these characteristics, these are really helping us to have better well-being level. So then I think, whichever religion we are following, then, learning these virtues, these positive characteristics, I think that's good for all of us. Thank you very much.